So last year I made a documentary that was supposed to just be an experiment. It was my first real long form video at an hour. And looking back at it, it is truly terrible. And yet it went viral, got 1 million views, thousands of dollars in revenue, got me monetized, and has helped me get to 20,000 subscribers in a year. Literally the best performing video I've ever made, even though it's truly terrible in many ways. So why is that? And more importantly, if I was to go back and do it again, what would I change? If anything, there is things. So let's find out what the horrible truth behind the secret truth of UFOs.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Remember the camera adds 10 pounds.
So how many cameras are actually on you?
So being Irish, I'm obviously going to start from a place of cynicism with the bad. And there's a very obvious bad in this that has been pointed out by hundreds, if not thousands, of commenters below the video. And that is the overuse of AI images. They are truly, truly terrible. Some of them are okay, but I just overused them, over-relied on them. And I get why I did it. I had an idea to kind of bring everything to life with illustrations. And I thought they were really, really good at the time. But looking back now, it hasn't aged well. They didn't look well at the time, if I'm honest. But I thought they did because it was an exciting new technology. I can't draw myself. I didn't have the budget to bring illustrators in. But they are truly, truly terrible. Some of them, like I said, aren't bad. And I think if I was to go back, I'd probably keep maybe 1 to 2% of them and fill in the rest with stock footage, custom graphics, things that I've done more and more of in my later videos. But I completely overdid this. I had a concept and I ran with it. And I think unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I just kind of decided on it. It was my first time, like I said, making a video like this. The channel was relatively new at the time. I think there was like 600 subscribers from some 10-minute videos that I'd done before that. And I just had a concept and I ran with it and I got excited and I just kept going and going and going. And I also put myself under, I think, a deadline, which I probably shouldn't have for that very first video, to just try and get it done because I had lots of other work to do. And that meant that when there was gaps I couldn't fill in, the default was just AI image. So that is one thing I would absolutely change.
1979. Carl Sagan said, extraordinary claims require
extraordinary evidence.
Another thing I would change is the intro. And this is going to sound weird because actually I quite like the intro. I've gone back and watched it again. And clearly it worked because the retention was, I think, it was around 27, 28 minutes, I think, over 1 million views, which is really, really good considering it's a 60-minute video. I know that's only like 48% or something. People would see that as low, but if you check out vidstu.com/insights, we did a post on that talking about the actual engagement percentages. And the longer the video is, the less the retention percentage is, even for the top 10%. It's actually quite good. And, you know, the opening is very important to that retention. And I think it sets the stage well. And I think because of the topic, which I'll get to later, it works. But what I've realized about watching it back now, if I was to make it again where it falls down, I think, is it doesn't build. You know, like if you're interested in the topic, it works. But I think if you weren't interested in the topic, if there wasn't such a big niche for the topic, it would have fallen down on its face because it's just a very kind of boring kind of buildup of facts, or kind of, you know, it's trying to basically shout out as like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, instead of, you know, this happened, therefore, oh my God, look at this, and build and build and build through a crescendo that makes you go, right, I'm hooked, I have to watch this. It works because I think there is intrigue and I stuck to some facts. But I think I was clearly trying to tell people, look, I'm not a moron. I researched this. Look, there are facts. Look at this. I'm not being crazy. I'm not a conspiracy guy. Watch this. Seriously, it's interesting. I think I was doing too much of that. And it clearly worked. I kind of understand why now it worked, because it's just those facts and people who clicked on it clearly were interested in the topic already. So I think that's why it works. But I don't think this would work with a different topic niche, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, not 100% happy with the intro. I'm putting it in the bad category, but is it terrible? No. Is it brilliant? No, definitely not.
That may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States.
Was essentially what it was set out to do. While they did take the investigations seriously, they were very
Oh god, the clicking, the clicking is so terrible. I don't think I need to say more, but my god, it's awful. Every single time an image appears on screen, every single time a document appears on screen, a document changes, image changes, click, 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 click. Again, the irony is it probably helped it get these views in a way, maybe, because it helps with retention. It's kind of this, like getting people to kind of look up again if they're on their phones because something's changed, something's happened. But it's awful. There was so many complaints. I would say there was more complaints about this than the AI images in the comments. And I completely get why. It's absolutely terrible. Same thing for fonts and graphics. Not just the AI images, but just the graphics and the fonts in general were done really poorly. And the color, it's like basically there's no cohesion. It's just kind of like a lot of things strung together that, loosely connect. Like I think in my later videos like Zodiac and Titan, I was much better in making sure that the color and the graphics and like just everything on screen was cohesive, so that even if, for example, the topics weren't brilliant and things weren't put together, it's clear that you're still watching the same video. And I think there's parts in this where while the fonts are the same technically, you could realistically come back to 2 or 3 parts of this and think it's a different video. And I think the storyline did a lot of heavy lifting in this one. But yeah, the graphics, the clicking, just a lot of the details were terrible. I guess that's to be expected from the first one. But yeah, some of this is just truly terrible. And while I like most of the storyline, which I'll get onto later, I think one part that I kind of drew out too much was the Blue Book part. This was a part where I didn't have many clips for. I didn't have many people there for it. And I think one of the things I'm doing in my upcoming conspiracy series that's coming out in December is having me a lot more on screen, a lot more narration, a lot more of me discussing the topic. But back then and up until now, basically, I've used the clips and the audio from other people to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I actually think it's a good way to tell the story. I like it. I'm not losing it completely. But I think what's happened is I've gotten a bit more confident in myself that I have researched these topics. I do understand these topics and I'm willing to kind of discuss them more in my own voice and with me more on camera. And back then, I obviously in this first one didn't have that confidence. So for the most part, this is told from the lens of the experts, which is great. I think it worked really, really well. And like I said, I'm not getting rid of that on my channel, but there was one part where I didn't have that. And because I didn't have the confidence either, I think what I did was I tried to draw it out as long as possible when I should have been more concise and more knowledgeable. And I was trying, once again, I think, to kind of convince the viewer, look, I'm not an idiot and this isn't a conspiracy thing. I genuinely know what I'm talking about here. And that lack of confidence, I think, comes out in the fact that it's just drawn out because I'm trying to put across that, look, I know what I'm talking about. This is a fact. This is a fact. This is a fact. This is a fact. And it's just not good storytelling, I don't think. Again, it worked, but I don't think it was brilliant. Now, before I get into the good, let me tell you about today's sponsor, VidStew. And if you're not a YouTuber, I would say skip this because this is very much just for YouTubers themselves. But VidStew is a new project management platform which is built for YouTubers by YouTubers, including myself. And VidStew is basically a platform for managing your video projects. You can store ideas, your thumbnails, your titles. It has a built-in teleprompter, all of these different things. But one of the things I absolutely love is the thumbnail tool. You can upload your thumbnail and title. And I know there's a ton of tools that do that, but this one allows you to not only store them in your project, but to also see them in a live view on a desktop and mobile, light and dark screen mode, amongst other YouTube videos, to really get a sense of whether your thumbnail and title, which is the most important part of any video, actually stand out in the platform itself and not in isolation. Because in isolation, they can look brilliant. And that's one of my favorite parts of VidStew. But basically, VidStew is a way and a place to store your ideas and then turn them into a project and go through research, scripting, recording, your editing checklist, testing your packaging, and all of that sort of thing. We're also building much more features into it over time. It only launched 2 weeks ago, so there's going to be new features every single week. But if you're a YouTuber and you find it hard to kind of structure your work, something that I've worked on a lot, and my kind of idea for this was to build something that would allow me to have that kind of flow of how I put a video together. If you're in that position, this is definitely an app that you should check out. You can find it at vidstew.com. The best part is it's completely free to sign up for and use. You don't even need a credit card, and you can actually use it for life for one project. And then if you want to have more projects or have multiple channels, that sort of thing, you can then upgrade to the pro versions, and there's different plans depending on your needs. So yeah, check out VidStew. It's completely free. You'll find it in the link in the description below. And with that said, let's get into the good. I think, look, the obvious good in this one was good timing and also good topic. Look, there is a lot of people interested in this. I think what held this together and made it stand out even over a lot of other UFO videos in the niche was I picked the right topic that has a lot of interest, the right time. The Congress stuff that I covered in it had just been in Congress only a couple of months earlier, so it was kind of a lot of talk around this on kind of big podcasts like Joe Rogan, for example. But I also took a unique angle, which was a lot of people just jump straight into conspiracy theories and a lot of the interesting stories. And I get why. It's kind of very clickbaitable and very interesting to talk about. You know, my daddy was abducted in 94 and I had this photo when daddy came back with the ectoplasm all over him. You know, that sort of thing that the History Channel loves to do. I'm sure I've just insulted many people there. But I decided to take it from a different angle, which was I wanted to take, you know, only things that credible military and government officials say, because, you know, those are the people that basically the conspiracy theorists are saying are lying to you. And to have those people on display saying, no, these things are real, and then trying to kind of evade and justify them, I thought was a really good way to do it. That leads me into the storyline element of it, but I think that was the angle. And it also helped because I think a lot of people don't trust the government. So even the people who saw what I was doing were like, you can't believe those people either. So I think the topic worked well there. The storyline, I think personally, is probably the biggest heavy lifting part of this, not to toot my own horn, but I think the storyline kind of came to me. So at that point, I think I've got an image of it, but I was doing like a big kind of putting sticky notes on a wall to try and do the storyline, something that I learned from watching Ken Burns discuss how they put their documentaries together. And I put that all together, and it all came together as this isn't a story about the what or the, you know, the how. This is a story about the people. And that was the key focus for me, to focus in on Grush, David Fravor, to focus in on a few other people, even Elizondo, and focus on them as key characters, so that even if you didn't really believe the story, your decision making was more, do you believe that person? And I think that's always more engaging. We as humans love to make a connection to another human being. So I think that kind of circling around the people made it, you know, strong, and sticking to the absolute facts, what's in evidence, you know, not going off on tangents like the History Channel loves to do, but what are the facts? What are the documents? What documents have been released? What have, you know, these government officials said under oath? Is it a bit dodgy? Is it real? Is it interesting? Is there subtext? You know, really going into these things. So I think it was a specific angle, focused on people, stayed very much grounded in the reality of the documents and what the government has said. And that was great, because it's like, whether you believe them or not, this is the government's stance on this. And the fact that the government's stance on this is, yeah, those things are there, I thought was just a great way to hook people who maybe thought this was just a conspiracy kind of fringe topic. And yeah, giving it that credibility. I think the storyline and basing it around those characters was the best thing that I did in that.
It rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We haven't gone anywhere. It's gone. Water's perfectly, there's no white water, nothing. It's just blue. So they launch off, and we're telling them about this before, and the backseater, Chad says.
And when it came to that storyline, as much as the AI was terrible, one thing I did in this that I haven't done since, and I'm kind of now thinking I should do more of, was a lot more sound design. And one piece of this specifically was when David Fravor was talking, because I had clips of David Fravor talking more casually on the Joe Rogan podcast and a couple of interviews, and then under oath in Congress. And that was great because you could clip it together and see that the story hadn't changed over the last kind of decade. But then also I tried to bring that to life with the sound design. So when the Harrier is taking off, you hear the noise of the Harrier. You hear the noise of the boats, the water, the helicopter. It goes to someone else then, and you hear whooshing and things, kind of just bringing it to life with that sound design. And I did that at a few points throughout. And I think that maybe was the crutch that kept the glue of the AI images together. Because even though the AI images were truly terrible, I think when you see the AI image on screen of a fighter jet and a cube in the sky, and then you hear the fighter jet and you hear kind of some of that, radio noise of military, that kind of thing. I think it does help just keep the engagement up. It immerses you a little bit better. And I think that was done quite well. I definitely could improve it, but I think it could be done quite well. And another thing that I think adds to the credibility of it, and it goes to storyline, but one thing I think I did well looking back on it now was I sat down and watched 16 to 20 hours of Senate hearings and Congress hearings, and picked out all of the pieces that were just the most interesting and the most standout. Like a guy who basically had discussed that this is a very fringe theory and obviously wasn't into the whole conspiracy theory of this. He was a government official working with the Pentagon who said on record in front of Congress when asked, after saying, look, we don't know what these things are and whatever, there's been 11 near misses. And then it looked, they asked him point blank, have you tried to communicate with these things that nearly crashed into your fighter jets? Have you tried to communicate with them? And his answer was no. I thought like a lot of that was just damning evidence that, right, this is like, regardless of what this thing is, what these things are, what they are, because there's no way a foreign object can collide almost with your fighter jet, your millions of dollars worth of military hardware, and you don't even try and radio with it. So that for me kind of, I'm not going to, I'll give it away. It doesn't matter now. But my conclusion is these are some sort of US craft, or at the very least, the US knows exactly what they are. But I thought, all of that time and effort of watching 16 to 20 hours of footage, I think paid off there, because it made that convincing argument of, look, somebody knows what the hell these things are. And that leads me into the evidence and answers. And I think that was one thing I really wanted to do in this, and I've been adamant at doing it in all of the kind of documentary form videos I've done on that channel since, which is to give the evidence, to give the opinion of the experts, to give the evidence, to give all the documents so that you know what's happening, and then give my opinion. And I think doing it that way, instead of giving my opinion and then trying to show it in evidence, means that by the time I give my opinion, you have already formed yours, or at least a quick opinion, even if you didn't have one coming into it, which in this topic you probably did. So that then when I give my opinion, one, I've built it in evidence, so I've told you why, but it allows you to then go, what? Are we watching the same thing? Or, yeah, I get you. I hadn't thought of it that way. But it breeds discussion. And there was more comments on this video than any other video that I've done. And I think that's probably the reason for it. And I kept doing that in the next ones because, you may not agree with my opinion. And maybe my opinion is terrible. And maybe my opinion has changed since, But the point is, you get the evidence so that I know that by the time I give my opinion, you've already seen enough to form your opinion, which means that the moment I give mine, you are more likely to jump in the comments and berate me. And that's good for engagement. And I think that was done really, really well. And I think the evidence is there because the comments went insane on that. So yeah, there's a lot I would change in this documentary. But honestly, after reviewing it again before making this video, it's not as awful as it was in my head. I watched it for the first time this year. I think I watched it last year, a couple of months after. when the Zodiac one took off and went on streaming, I watched the UFO one to see, the UFO and Zodiac documentary, what I would change, what's been good, bad, all these different things. But yeah, I genuinely, there's a lot I would change, but it's not that bad. And hopefully some of this has helped you on your YouTube journey to kind of decide what you would put into your videos, what you would take out, that sort of thing. And I think I'll do more of these videos. So if you have a video you want me to cover, or another YouTuber's video that you'd like me to look at and say what you think I would think of it, that doesn't make sense, you know what I mean, or you just want to see more behind the scenes stuff I'll be doing on this channel, do give a subscribe, give VidStew some love and sign up for free as well. And yeah, subscribe. Thanks for watching.